Teresa Lieb, VP of Nature in Europe at Trellis Group, and I'm excited to be joined today by Aleksandra Holmlund and Martin Pilstjärna. Aleksandra is the CEO of forest investor Qarlbo Biodiversity, and Martin is its Director of Impact. Hi, Aleksandra and Martin. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, nice to be here.
So this is a special conversation because you both are obviously in a forest. And I'd love to hear where you are and why you're joining us from outside today.
Sure. So we are in Louisiana on our property Merryville, where we are applying our nature positive forest management strategy, aiming at producing not only wood, but also positive biodiversity outcomes.
So we would love to learn a little bit about your journey, both personal journeys and professional journeys in terms of how you got into forestry and how you ended up at Qarlbo.
I have always been interested in nature. I studied forestry and have been working in operational forestry and forestry investments for the whole of my career. And a few years ago, I decided to dig deeper into opportunities to finance biodiversity through biodiversity credits. So that is really my way into this area.
How about you, Martin?
Yeah, I have a background in certified forestry and sustainable forest management, and I have a couple of years I've been thinking of finding other ways to work with even more ambitious initiatives. So I think what we're doing now at Qarlbo with the nature positive forest management strategy is sort of the perfect place for me to be at the moment.
Why does it matter to improve biodiversity in production landscapes, and how would a forest that's optimized for biodiversity look different from maybe a regular forest that you see out there?
Sure. Well, starting from why biodiversity is important, well, it is critical because it is necessary for the long-term sustainability actually of forest production, because if you have an unstable ecosystem, it will not be resilient for natural disturbances. Also, it will not be resilient with respect to the ongoing climate crisis. So what we really want to do is create resilient forest ecosystems that will continue to be productive for the long term. And here we like to talk about the importance of production forest landscapes. Looking at the amount or the area that is under production forest globally, we end up at 30% of total land area. That will be slightly bigger than the area of Canada, and that everybody can picture that in their heads. And there is also research showing that a 10% decline in biodiversity in forests will result in a 4% reduction of forest productivity, which is therefore a direct connection to the bottom line, the returns. So there is a strong economic incentive to work with improving forest biodiversity in order to maintain long-term sustainable forest production. And as an example, I can say that in Sweden, for example, we have more often occurring insect outbreaks and storm damages, which can partly be connected to loss of biodiversity in production forests. So we really want to work with this and improve forest biodiversity, as I said, to continue sustainable forest production.
And what are some of the practices and impactful ways that you've managed to do that? Martin, can you share something from your work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a huge potential working with production forest landscapes, since obviously by the historical management has resulted in a quite degraded and simplified forest ecosystems that has a huge potential for restoration, where we can actually do various types of active management to improve the biodiversity status of the forest by increasing, let's say, certain key forest structures that we could actively increase in the forest that are associated with biodiversity. That's one of our core central themes for us to do active management and restore forests.
Great. And Aleksandra, in addition to your role at Qarlbo, you're also quite actively engaged in the global biodiversity and credit conversation and driving forward methodologies and standards. I'd love to hear a little bit about how this space has been developing recently. What are the major advances and what are the big challenges still lying ahead of us?
Qarlbo Biodiversity is a task force member of the Biodiversity Credit Alliance, which is one of the major organizations, global organizations for the advancement of biodiversity credit markets. It all started with this PhD study that I'm doing. And here, Martin has really helped me develop a methodology and later on our nature positive forest management strategy that is really kind of resting on the methodology for biodiversity credits. As a business, Qarlbo really wants to make sure how biodiversity can be incorporated in sustainable forest management so that it can be profitable. That is really what we want to make sure that we manage. For this reason, we have also tried sort of to translate what do the global recommendations from the Biodiversity Credit Alliance, how would they look like on the local level? And therefore, we have also engaged in the Swedish Biocredit Alliance.
Within that alliance, this SBA, Swedish Biocredit Alliance, we are taking the role as a methodology developer, really. So we have been working for, I would say, probably 2 years now with our methodology for biodiversity credits in production landscapes.
Great. And you're also seeing demand going up. Is it quite an active market at this point, or do you feel like a lot of people still need convincing of purchasing credits and getting involved?
Well, to be honest, the market is still nascent. So what we are doing is in order to move that market, is to show that it can be done. So for this, in this way, this is why we have created 5 pilot projects in Sweden, some of which have been sold. I think, speaking of challenges and opportunities for the biodiversity credit market, what we need to do now is to clarify the use cases for biodiversity credits to corporates, and also to create flexible business models so that it is easy for the corporates to engage. And that is what we are trying to do with those pilot projects, to really listen in what the corporation in question is interested in or what they need to do connected to their value chains, and then also to understand what will make it easy for them to buy a biodiversity credit. I think also a point that I would like to make is that there is a huge opportunity for creating biodiversity credit projects in production landscapes for several reasons. Corporations often have part of the value chains connected to production landscapes. Second, a lot of money is already invested in such landscapes and needs to be protected. I'm talking here about risk connected to depleting or degrading biodiversity of those production landscapes. As I mentioned earlier, there is a connection between productivity and biodiversity. So in the end, if we don't take care of those production landscapes biodiversity, we will end up with less produce. And we don't want that to happen. And then third, the project risk within a biodiversity credit project in production landscapes is usually lower than in other places. For example, looking at tenure rights, for example, and contractual infrastructure is usually in place where you have already ongoing investments in production landscapes. So it takes care of a lot of issues, and is really probably one of the lowest sort of apples to pick on the tree. So we really are tooting our horn for production landscapes. We think it's really important.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. I'll cross my fingers that the markets keep going up and developing, and that your pilot projects will return really encouraging results for the corporates. And yeah, thank you for sharing the work with our audience and joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.